I hope this finds you doing well. In Isaiah chapter number 5, the prophet begins to really come down hard on the people. And this is a chapter in which he's, proclaiming to them that their rebellion has caused God to remove his protection over them as a people. And he begins to declare woe upon all the different wickedness that was going on that started to happen in chapter 3. And so in verse number 8, he says, "Woe to those who join house to house and who add field to field until there is no more room, and you are made to dwell alone in the midst of the land. The Lord of hosts has sworn in my hearing, surely many houses shall be desolate, large and beautiful houses without inhabitant. For 10 acres of vineyard shall yield but one bath, and a homer of seed shall yield but an ephah. Woe to those who rise early in the morning that they may run after strong drink, who tarry late in the evening as wine inflames them. They have lyre and harp and tambourine and flute and wine at their feast, but they do not regard the deeds of the Lord or see the works of his hand. And therefore my people go into exile for lack of knowledge. Their honored men go hungry, and their multitude is parched with thirst. Therefore Sheol has enlarged its appetite and opened its mouth beyond measure, and the nobility of Jerusalem and her multitude will go down. Her revelers and he who exalts in her. Man is humbled, and each one is brought low, and the eyes of the haughty are brought low. But the Lord of hosts is exalted in justice, and the holy God shows himself holy in righteousness. Then shall the lambs graze as in their pasture, and nomads shall eat among the ruins of the rich. Woe to those who draw iniquity with cords of falsehood, who draw sin as with cart ropes, who say, let him be quick, let him speed his work that we may see it. Let the counsel of the Holy One of Israel draw near, and let it come that we may know it. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight. Woe to those who are heroes at drinking wine and valiant men in mixing strong drink, who quit the guilty for a bribe and deprive the innocent of his right. Therefore, as the tongue of fire devours the stubble, and dry grass sinks down in the flame, so their root will be as rottenness, and their blossom go up like dust. For they have rejected the law of the Lord of hosts, and have despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. Well, we see that the prophet Isaiah is ready to call out the rejection of the people and the nation and the leadership of what they know to be right, the will of God, the purposes of God. And in many different fashions, they had just given themselves over to wantonness. He declared woe because they just thought about pleasure, drinking and getting drunk and having parties. And they forgot that as the people of God, as the nation of God, they forgot the deeds of the Lord or the works of his hand. It's when life becomes all about you and I, us, we forget all that God has done. And Israel had been delivered so many times by God, miraculously. And they forgot. And they just pursued their own desires. They started making iniquity and evil the norm. We saw in the last devotion, they wanted everyone to celebrate their sin like Sodom and Gomorrah. And in the end result of all of this sin and sinning was to bring them low, to bring them to the horrible consequences of their sin and desolation and exile. And this land that they had been given after the Exodus, this land of milk and honey, would now be desolate for them. They had started to call evil good and good evil. They had started to call darkness light and light darkness. It was the demise of the culture and the nation that they celebrated sin. And Isaiah rightfully declares upon them, woe. The whole idea of this woe is the great despair that is coming on you as a people because they had rejected the law of the Lord and they despised the Holy One of Israel. We need to remember, even as a new covenant people, that while we don't live under the law that God had given to Israel, that we're not a lawless people. The law was to show them his absolute holiness. It was to call them out from the world as a people who were distinct and following Jehovah. It was never given to show them they were righteous. It was to show them their need for mercy. But to despise the word of the Lord is to make yourself your own God. To despise God is to put yourself as though you were your own God, your own authority. And he says, whoa, destruction is coming. So as we see and read through Isaiah, well, let's remember that pride and arrogance, whenever we make it all about us and what we want, and we want people to celebrate our sin and embrace it, that we are bringing harm, chaos, and destruction on ourselves, on our culture, on our people. God prohibits only what is bad for us, only what destroys the image or the character of his kingdom life. And so we honor him and exalt him, for he knows what is truly and in every way our best. We submit to him no matter how reckless the culture gets, no matter how they call darkness evil. Darkness light and light darkness, no matter how they call good evil and evil good. Even in our own day, we see it. And we can't get sucked into that. Remember, we are the light of the world. And he lives in us, so he can live through us. Well, I hope you'll meditate on this and that it'll bless and encourage you in your journey. Have a great day.